Time at SPLICE, and welcome everybody who's tuned in online, and those of you who will watch this later because you want to laugh at something I said, welcome to it. My name is Elainie Lillios. I'm of course a faculty member here at SPLICE Institute, and I also teach at Bowling Green State University in Ohio. I get invited to different universities, schools, to talk about my music quite a bit. And what I have realized over the years as I go places to talk about my music is that people tend to stay away from talking about the challenges, the problems, the failures, right? We see someone's composition and it's awesome or it's very impressive or whatever it is that we think about it, right? But we never know the work. You don't know the background of what goes into it. We also don't talk so much to our students or to each other, I think, although maybe all of you do, about why we do what we do. So what I'd like to do today is, rather than talking about my music, I want to talk a little bit about finding the why. Because finding the why, the why of what I do has been on my mind since, well, always, right? Why am I doing this? Why did I not become a landscaper, right? Okay, so I want to spend a little bit of time kind of investigating this idea of the why. And yeah, so let's just dive in. Okay, so when I was in your shoes, I was a student or I was a young professional, and I just thought about it all the time, like, why do I continue going to school? Why am I a musician? Why am I a composer? Why am I a performance major? All of those things I thought about all the time, and I don't know, maybe over time I've solved them, or maybe I haven't. So, when we think about this idea of the why, right? We start to tap into our intrinsic desire to know something, right? To understand something. And philosophers use this idea of the why to better understand the human condition, right? So why, as a concept, taps into this idea of causality, right? Causality is one of the ways that we know something. We know what something has come to mean, and we know its causes and its effects, right? So causality, reality, and others are among the 12 categories of thought that were identified by 18th century German philosopher Immanuel Kant to correspond to forms of understanding that are the foundations of our conceptual knowledge. And I know that Kant, back at that time, thought about why cats are afraid of cucumbers, right? I mean, I'm sure he spent months and months contemplating this very important concept, right? So when we think about why, It's really a beautiful question, everybody, because it tries to unlock sort of this deeper mystery, right, about who we are as humans, and it explores sort of the contributing factors of any situation, right? So if we think about it, for any experience or thought that we have from the time we were able to speak, and maybe even before, I don't remember that far back, we have asked why. Little kids are great at it, right? Why? And then you answer them and they say, but why? And then you answer that question and then they say, but why? Right? So why is embedded into our personas as something that we always ask, that we want to know, that we wonder about, right? So with that answer, we're able to dig deeper into something, right, by asking why again, right? So through this iterative process, through this repetition of asking why, we kind of come to these more in-depth answers, and we get to the root cause, right, of, or the most more profound understanding of some sort of issue. So this brings me to a person that I want to share with you. His name is Simon Sinek. I wonder how many of you have heard of Simon Sinek and his golden circle? Nobody. All right, awesome. We're going to maybe get kicked off of YouTube for this one. Aaron, we could get booted because I'm going to play a video clip of Simon Sinek. So Simon Sinek is a British-American author and motivational speaker. He discovered some very interesting patterns about how the greatest leaders and organizations think, act, and communicate, right? He's best known for popularizing the concept of why in the first TED Talk that he gave on the subject in 2009. We're going to watch a little bit about this. So keep in mind, everybody, number one, Simon Sinek in this lecture is talking about, he is talking to corporate people, right? He's talking to people who run businesses or are involved in business. So every time he starts to say something that has to do with business or corporations, we just need to, in our minds, insert the word arts, right? Or the word composer or the word performer. So that's what we're going to do. And the disclaimer about this is the audio on this is horrifically, embarrassingly terrible. But it's the only clip I could find. And I think it's really worth it to hear what he has to say. So I apologize that this sounds terrible, but we're going to watch Simon Sinek talk about the golden circle. I am also not a fan of talking over other people's talking, but the video quality is also poor, so I'm going to maybe have to run and point out some things because you won't be able to see them. Let's do it.
Circle. Why, how, what?
What is on
this
the
little
outside
idea
there, everybody?
Explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? And why should anyone care? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done, that's how most sales is done, and that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do, we say how we're different or how we're better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We have, we always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You're ready to buy a computer from me. All I did was reverse the order of the information. What it proves to us is that people don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This explains why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple. But we're also perfectly comfortable buying an MP3 player from Apple, or a phone from Apple, or a DVR from Apple. But as I said before, Apple's just a computer company. There's nothing that distinguishes them structurally from any of their competitors. Their competitors are all equally qualified to make all of these products. In fact, they tried. A few years ago, Gateway came out with flat-screen TVs. They're eminently qualified to make flat-screen TVs. They've been making flat-screen monitors for years. Nobody bought one. And Dell came out with MP3 players and PDAs. And they make great quality products, and they can make perfectly well-designed products, and nobody bought one. In fact, talking about it now, we can't even imagine buying an MP3 player from Dell. Why would you buy an MP3 player from a computer company? But we do it every day. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. When we communicate from the outside in, yes, people can understand vast amounts of complicated information like features and benefits and facts and figures. It just doesn't drive behavior. When we communicate from the inside out, we're talking directly to the part of the brain that controls behavior, and then we allow people to rationalize it with the tangible things we say and do. This is where gut decisions come from. Sometimes you can give somebody all the facts and your figures, and you say, I know what all the facts and details say, but it just doesn't feel right. Why would we use that verb? It doesn't feel right. Because the part of the brain that controls decision-making doesn't control language. And the best we can muster up is, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. Or sometimes you say you're leading with your heart, or you're leading with your soul. Well, I hate to break it to you, those aren't other body parts controlling your behavior. It's all happening here in your limbic brain, the part of the brain that controls decision-making and not language. But if you don't know why you do what you do, and people respond to why you do what you do, then how will you ever get people to vote for you or buy something from you, or more importantly, be loyal?
Okay, so that's a rather long clip, but I think that Simon Sinek is touching on something that is very important to us as artists, as creative individuals in this world. This idea of why we do something, why we do what we do. So when we take a look at Simon Sinek's golden circle, right, we can see that why is in the center, and then the how you do what you do and what you do reside on the outside. It's super easy for us to talk about what we do. Hey, look at my super cool Max patch. I spent months making it, right? Or we could say how we did it. Well, I built a circuit design that is based on the Schrödinger principle, and maybe I think I am going to add a gerbil, right? Okay, so we can talk, and we do that a lot together, right? We're always talking about the what we're doing and the how. But we don't always, or we rarely perhaps, talk about the why. Because the why becomes a very personal thing, right? The why makes us vulnerable. It's the most inner personal reason for why we do what we do. And it's a whole lot easier to hide behind my super cool Max badge, right? The what or the how. I can hide behind that so that I don't have to talk about the why to other people. And then maybe I don't have to think about the why for myself. But I think we all know that somewhere inside ourselves, the why is there. And when we face that why and we acknowledge it, we embrace it, we bring it to ourselves, and we infuse everything that we do as a creative individual with that why, our message as a composer, as a performer, as a creative individual in this world is going to be more powerful, and it's going to reach people more effectively. Let's talk a little bit about it. So there's this interesting, as I was thinking about this lecture, I started thinking about the historical why of music composition. And forgive me, performers, but I'm not enough in this world in the world of performance to know whether this is also true for performers. I hope it is. But I'm going to talk about it from a compositional perspective for the moment, right? So historically, music served, very, very specific types of functions. We had religious music, court music, music of the masses, right? And that's still true today to a certain degree. But the advent of the academy created a different kind of why for composers. And here it is. I actually have to read it because I can't even remember my supposed why. So I'm going to read this to you. I studied with Larry Austin, composer Larry Austin, who studied with Violet Archer, who studied with Bela Bartok, who studied with Claude Debussy, who studied with Charles Gounod, who studied with Fromental Halevi, who studied with Luigi Cherubini, and so on, right? We can trace our historical lineage as a composer or as a performer based on who we studied with and who they studied with, and so on, all the way back, right? And so then eventually you get all the way back to, right, okay. I have very humorous colleagues. That's Johann Sebastian Bach's. That's actually a Genelec loudspeaker. I just, Okay, I'll go on. So, I can trace my compositional roots, and Scott Fitzinger has a great book that allows me to do that, right? But the question is, why would I do that? Why is that important? Why was that important? Is it still important, right? So what was the purpose of this idea of talking about your ancestral lineage, who you studied with and who they studied with, and so on, right? Because what did it do? It created its own kind of why. And the why was because those were the techniques, style, ideology, values. I was taught those because those were taught to my professor, right? The values that I was taught as a composer are those that were taught to me and taught to them, right? So things become important to me as a composer because they were important to my teacher, and they were important to my teacher because they were important to their teacher, and so on. So what we end up with is a system that perpetuates itself. Okay? So, in a certain way, however, I am happy to say that this idea of the self-perpetuating system where we continue to value exactly what was taught to us and reject the things that were not taught to us, this seems to have changed. And far more younger composers, people of your generation, seem much more comfortable with and much more readily able to say, you know what, I think I just really want to put a beat into this piece, And I am not going to write that 12-tone music, and if you don't like it, well, I'll just go to another school, right? So you somehow feel more empowered to be explorative and experimental in ways that you find valuable than perhaps people of my generation were, right? So what happens? We teach what we know, and students either take that advice or not. And I think that the paradigm has shifted from the do what I tell you to do to the let me help guide you, right? So a less of a dictatorship to more of a mentorship approach, where as we are teaching young composers, it is a little bit more of a partnership than it is a, you didn't write anything this week? Get out. I've seen it. I don't think that's ever happened to me, but I've seen it happen to other people. They go into their professor's office, they only have 1 or 2 measures written, they're stuck, right? And the professor looks at it, is this all you did? Yes, I'm stuck. Oh, go figure it out, right? So now, instead, we have something that we say more like, okay, well, let's figure it out, right? So, the paradigm has shifted a little bit, but when we are in a situation, so, you know, John T. Harrison, who I studied with at the University of Birmingham in England, he was the type of composer, I was studying with him, I would bring my materials to him, he would say, may I sit down? So he would sit in the studio, in my seat in the studio, and he would say, may I? And I would say, yes, of course. And so he would take my Pro Tools session, I was using Pro Tools at that time, and he'd say, well, if you just put this thing here, and you put this thing here, and you put this other thing here, and then he played his thing again. Oh my gosh, like, how did you do that, right? And so then you learn by example, right? Rather than by a professor saying, you know, looking at your stuff or listening, great, come back next week. Like, see, you get too many like, great, come back next week. Where does that leave me as an individual? Well, right? What do I do next? Where am I going? Okay. So, you might be sitting there thinking to yourself, yeah, okay, Lillios, sure, brilliant. Why should I bother finding the why? You know, I'm making music, I'm practicing my instrument, I'm doing my thing. You know, why should I bother finding the why? Looking at the why, thinking about the why, it makes me feel uncomfortable. It makes me maybe think that I'm like failing, right? Like, you know, maybe I really should have been a landscaper. You know, maybe I should be out planting hydrangeas somewhere, right? But I would say to you in response, like, why not think about the why? And why not think about the why now? You are in the strongest, best position you will be in your entire career. Take it from me, right? You have the opportunity and the ability to experiment, to explore, to try new things, to fail in an environment where your peers are going to be encouraging. Yeah, maybe they're going to laugh at you a little bit, you know. Oh, you tripped coming off the stage. Yes, I did, right? And so, you know, you are in a place where you can try things for very little risk. At least, I hope that's true for you wherever you are. So, to take that opportunity to say, I need to find my why, I need to figure this out, I need to experiment, okay? You know, I think about why all the time. It drives everything I do, and sometimes it actually drives me crazy, right? However, but without the why, I don't think I could do what I do, and I know for sure I would not compose the type of music I do. Because finding the why for me influenced my trajectory as a composer. We're going to get to that. But when we think about this idea of the why, right? The why is going to help me move out of Simon Sinek's golden circle to the how and the what, right? And when we have these 3 elements coming together, the why, combined with the how and the what, right? We can find our voice as a composer. And that voice is a very purposeful one that we have chosen. Not that it's the easy path. Not that it's kind of, well, that's what my professor did, so that's what I'm going to do. Something that is unique and personal to us. And people can hear that in your music. They feel that in your performing, right? This genuineness, this intent. And it comes from finding the why, right? That doesn't mean it's going to be easy. That doesn't mean I'm going to not have any self-loathing every day. Like, I got to compose that piece, right? It just means that I know why I'm doing it. And that why helps me compose with greater intent, reflection. So, here's the chicken and the road question for the day, right? Do you find the why? Or does the why find you? Right? It's not the chicken in the road, it's the chicken or the egg. Right? Excuse me. Sorry. Correct me at any time. Yep. Chicken or the egg? Do I find the why, or does the why find me? Like, hello? Where are you? I'm looking for you, why? Okay, so, I've thought about this, and I know the answer for myself. But I don't know if the answer that I have for myself is the answer that is true for all of you. Anybody ever thought about that before we go on? About whether you find the why or the why finds you? Yeah, Max, hit me.
I think it's a little bit of both in that, we have to be open to it, but part of being open is looking at what's around us and receiving and communicating. And ultimately it's a choice we make, but it's, a choice guided by where we are and what we're doing.
Great, thank you. Anybody else want to chime in? Patrick?
I think it may depend on, it may be an individual thing, like some people find the why and others the why finds them, or some combination.
Right. Okay, so for those of you who are online who probably did not hear that response, one person responded that it's maybe a little of both. And actually they both sort of said it's a little bit of both. Yeah, but in different ways. Okay. So, I think that's true. I think it can be a little bit of both, and I think there's no right or wrong about this idea of the why, right? So the why actually whacked me over the head. The why found me with a big sonic sledgehammer when I was in doctoral school. A composer named Stephen Montague was visiting the University of North Texas. He came and did an acousmatic concert, which is a fixed media concert. Because at that time I had no idea what acousmatic music was. And he brought with him a piece by a composer named Gilles Gobet. And the name of this piece is Les Vertiges Inconnus. And here is the program note. I'm only going to play an excerpt, but I encourage all of you to check this piece out. It changed my life. Here on the roof of the world, I feel a shadow of uneasiness. It's not at all the height, nor the kind of suction exerted by the abrupt depths and its emptiness which troubles me. It's an altogether different emptiness which affects an altogether different sense, the essence of solitude. This is a quote from the program note. And so, Les Vertiges Inconnus means the unknown vertigo, or the hidden vertigo. Let's listen to a little excerpt of this piece. It was hard to find an excerpt because the whole thing is so great. But let's listen to a little bit of this. it turns out. You're going to have to listen to the rest of the piece. All right, so that's Gilles Gobet, Le Vertige Inconnu. So moving on. And so this is the piece that made me decide, okay, this is what I want. This is my why. Now I need to follow this why path. This is the why for me. This person's music. I found it. Now what I want to do is just spend a little bit of time talking about a few people I know who have found their why, when their why did not end up being the academy. Because the why, sort of the why direction for all of us, well, not all of us, but many of us, is sort of the academy, right? I'm a composer, what am I going to do? Oh, I guess I'm going to teach. But that doesn't always happen. And here are a few people for whom it did not. And I'm really happy about that. These are my former students. They are BGSU alums. I reached out to them and they agreed to be subjects for this talk. Right, so these all studied composition with me. They took very different paths to finding their why. And I asked them a couple of questions. I asked them to self-identify. How do you define yourself? Okay. I asked them 2 questions. How did you find the why of what you currently do? And how did being a composer help you get where you are today? Like, how did it help you find your why? The first person I want to share with you is Brian Sears, who is a SPLICE alum also. He is a project manager and assistant to the dean at the Berklee College of Music in Boston. Right? He is finishing his doctorate at Brandeis University. He's a composer. He's a very skilled composer and a very creative composer. And he decided, I don't think I really want to teach. I really don't want to end up in the academy in that type of role, but I really like working with people. And here's what he says. Over the years, I found myself increasingly interested in creating collaborative and creative opportunities for artists and musicians. This began as a way for me to generate my own opportunities and develop my voice, but I quickly discovered that I have an aptitude for managing complex and multi-layered projects. In my current role, I help manage visiting artists and interdivisional projects at Berklee College of Music, helping to connect student artists with educational opportunities that might help them find their own why. So in finding his why, he's helping other people find their why, right? So he says, being a composer helped me on this journey by giving me experience managing intricate projects and working with many different kinds of artists and professionals. Specifically, my background in electroacoustic music was incredibly helpful as it forced me to recognize the importance of meticulous planning and forethought, both in concert management and compositional planning. Let's listen to a little bit of music by Brian just to give him a little airtime. Plus, this next piece of his that's called Tremendous, that we're going to listen to an excerpt of, is being performed by Transient Canvas, and I hope you all had, or many of you had an opportunity to meet Amy and Matt while they were here. They've run off to the Clarinet Festival, but Transient Canvas joined us for a little bit this year, and so here is a little excerpt of Tremendous for bass, clarinet, marimba, and electronics. Tremendous! This is the best piece. No other piece has ever been as great as this piece. This piece has all the best notes, written by the best people. Everyone knows that there has never been a piece like this in the history of the world, ever. Believe me, this piece is the smartest piece and knows all the best people. Anyone who says this piece isn't the best piece is being fake. Sad. bar company. The next person I'd like to share with you is Nicole Carroll, who is a composer, performer, sound designer, and builder who is right now a lecturer in digital composition at the University of Newcastle in Australia. Interestingly, Nicole did not really answer my questions, but says that themes found in my work derive from reflections of nature, occult philosophies, literature, and the human psyche. I perform live electronic music using an array of custom controllers, hacks, hardware synthesizers, circuit bent toys, and sometimes a Game Boy. Nicole was not doing any of this kind of work at Bowling Green, but Nicole found their why, right? And this is it: instrument design, live performance. Here is a little excerpt of Nicole performing Orrery Arcana with a custom-built instrument that they created. Beverly, who after leaving Bowling Green State University became an entrepreneur. He's a field recordist, acoustic ecologist, and composer. And he says, I'm a field recordist and composer. I've spent many years writing music sonically tied to natural environments. My compositions use real-time weather data, Max computer coding language, live instruments, electronics. My art is a blend of conservation and music. Recently, I've been traveling around the world as a field recordist in search of natural soundscapes free of human noise pollution. I've recorded thousands of hours of nature soundscapes and have created a substantial catalog of sound libraries currently used in films, music, video games, museum installations, and sound art. I also work with conservation groups to preserve the sounds of endangered species and environments. Through my art, I aim to raise awareness and inspire people to protect unique acoustic ecosystems for future generations. So, Tom left BG and became an entrepreneur. You can go to his website and buy all kinds of super cool, amazing environmental soundscape recordings. Here's a little compilation of some of his work. lastly, I would like to share with you a student who I'm also especially proud of for finding their why. This is my former student and tech assistant, Stacey Gordon. Stacey went on to become an audiologist. So here's a really great example of using music as a way to really find your why when finding your why means you're really no longer a composer, right? Okay, so what Stacey says about finding her why, and sorry about the photo, everybody, this was the only photo I could find of Stacey. So Stacey says, composing electroacoustic music made me aware of and appreciate how beautiful and interesting all the sounds in our world are. It's a wonderful thing when a hearing impaired person hears the wind for the first time. And she said, you know, I help people hear all the amazing sounds in our world, right? So to me, this is the why that I kind of find the most profound out of everybody's. This is, in a certain way, the farthest afield, but at the same time, maybe the most profound impact on other people, right? So that's Stacey. All right. So what the heck am I getting at with all of this? So, what do all these people tell us? What are they telling us? They're telling us that it's okay, right? It's okay to question why we do what we do. It's okay to question what you're doing. It's okay to question your path, your future, your present, your past. We can't do anything about the past, right? That's done. But we can do something about how we navigate through this world as a creative individual, and how finding that why can really help lead us to that destination, the destination that we really are seeking, but that maybe we really don't want to think about, right? Because we think about this expectation rather than the true why. So this brings me to the so what now, right? Okay, I've found my why, I've got it. Or my why has found me, I've got it. Anyway, I've got the why, I'm gonna put it in my backpack and I'm going for it, right? So what happens next, right? So now we can get to the sort of what and how. And I have some dubious tips for setting goals and budgeting time. And because I'm so good at this dubious tips for setting goals and budgeting time, we actually probably only have about 4 minutes left. Right? So this was the sort of, I was going to give like this major disclaimer, like, I'm talking about this, but I'm really a pretty big failure at it. But here are some really great things. So I'm going to run through these really fast, okay? Right. So, we got to set goals. Woo-hoo! All right, we're going. So dubious tips, right, for achieving success and avoiding burnout. Like, why should I bother? Why should I even bother doing that? Well, it can help me get to my destination because eventually I've got to get that piece done, or eventually I've got to learn this project or do things, right? So we remember Simon Sinek, the why was in the center. I'm finding my why, and then I got to do everything else, right? So I can think about some steps, like what is the goal I want to achieve, right? I want to become a famous composer. I want my music published on CD. I want to perform in Carnegie Hall. I want to get a job. I want to climb Mount Everest, whatever that is, right? I got to come up with my goal. Then I'm going to come up with steps to achieve that goal, right? Number 1, get up. Number 2, make coffee. Number 3, drink coffee. Number 4, go back to number 2, right? Make more coffee, okay? So what are the steps I need to achieve my goal? But you know what? When I think about those steps, and I think to myself, oh my gosh, I have to finish this piece, and then I have 2 more pieces that I have to write this summer, you can start getting really down on yourself, like, I'll never make it, right? And so it's really important, everybody, as we're going along this journey to kind of acknowledge how far I've already come. I made a sketch. I did some experiments with Robin, right? I can pat myself on the back for the things I've already done, but I need to acknowledge that, guess what, Elainie? You are lazy and you need to work harder, right? to achieve my goal. But don't underestimate the things you've already achieved. Because if I sink too far down into that self-loathing of the fact that I haven't gotten it done, I'm not going to be able to dig myself out of that to get it done, right? So I gotta be able to congratulate myself, even if all I did was sit down, turn on my computer, and look, right? That's a step in the right direction. At least I went into my studio, right? After the coffee, okay. So, like what courses or actions are needed next? I love making lists, right? That's all I'm gonna say about that. Create a timeline, right? I'm gonna visualize my plan, I'm gonna say, and this, I'm also very terrible about this, right? I was supposed to have this piece done by the end of June. What's today? Okay, right. So when I get home, I'm gonna have to email the performer and say, can I have a couple more weeks? Right, create a timeline. Then you have to stick to that timeline, right? So they talk about successful goal setting, right? I gotta have my long-range goals, my intermediate goals, my short-range goals, and my daily tasks. Gotta finish that assignment, gotta write that paper, gotta pay my rent. The problem is that we can let those daily tasks get in the way of sort of the creative activity, right? Because by the time I'm done doing all those daily tasks, frankly, I just want to take a nap and I don't want to compose. So be careful. Don't allow yourself to get too distracted by all that stuff that you have to get done. Put it aside. It's going to be there when you're done. But in the meantime, you might be able to get some of that composing done, or that really beastly, difficult piece kind of, hacked out, okay? There's this thing called SMART. We want to make our goals specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. I will let you read all about that on your own. There's tons about it on the internet. Budgeting time, yes, this is what I'm very bad at. Having limits and learning to say no, right? The whole idea of we can do anything, but we can't do everything. So my mother, who has never been terribly actively invested in my professional career, she follows what I do and she pays attention, has now decided that she's going to become my manager because she feels that I have said yes to too many projects. And so she has said to me, Elainie, you may not say yes to any more projects. Okay, Mom, right? So, learning to say no, it's so hard to do. How do we say no when someone says, hey, can you write me a piece? I'd really like to do it. Can you have it done by tomorrow? Oh, okay. So, these principles that kind of go along with this about devoting time, focusing our attention, honoring our commitments, develop a sustainable pace, keep on moving, don't stop, right? And then feel good now. I'm going to skip ahead to feel good now because that's the one to me that means the most, right? This idea of keep on moving, number one, and feel good now. Whoops, I went too far. Right. How can I take a step so small that it's impossible to fail, right? That's like the Pauline Oliveros super slow motion step, where you're moving so slowly, I can't do it anymore, that you are moving so slowly, the super, super slow motion, right? How can I take a step so small that it's impossible to fail? So the other thing that I tell my students to do is I say, look, the other thing that you should do is quit while you're ahead. When my composing is going well, I stop before I get stuck. Because then I can look forward to it tomorrow. If I wait till I get stuck, then I'm going to dread. Oh, I dread it, right? I'm stuck. I better just leave it alone. So try to quit while you're ahead, everybody. Feel good now. Woohoo! So being productive is only going to make sense if you enjoy what you're doing, right? Maybe we kind of hate our project. Maybe we have some self-loathing about it, but that's part of that creative process. But when we love what we do, as I mentioned earlier, it's going to come through in that artistic product. So now I just want to share with you before I close our talk and we go to dinner, a couple of texts that I've read within the last couple of years that have really impacted the way I think about what I do and how I do it. Remember, I've already found my why, so the what and how are kind of like rotate around that for me a lot. There is a really fantastic book, everybody, that I highly recommend that you all either read or listen to as an audiobook. It's called Deep Work: Rules for Focused Success in a Distracted World by Cal Newport. And what he says is, he says that, you know, what we are doing as creative individuals is deep work. It takes a lot of thought. It takes time. It takes energy, right? Deep work takes time. Deep work takes uninterrupted time. Right? Our lives are very fragmented. We get distracted by many, many things. This is true for me very much, right? And to be able to set that time aside to do that deep work, to cultivate that creativity in whatever way works for you. If it means you go for a walk, if it means that you just sit and meditate for a while. It doesn't mean sitting and watching television or doing anything with my devices, my phones, my radio. It means just being in a place, in a space, to give yourself this opportunity to tap into that creativity. I love this book. I actually need to go back to it and reread it again. Eat That Frog! This is a fun book, everybody. It's not very long. It's very easy to read. And basically, it talks about the fact that if we have 5 tasks to do, and on the bottom of that list is something that is a very large task that we really don't want to do, we'll do all the other tasks until there's no time to do the task that we really should be doing. And so Eat That Frog is all about saying the thing that's the hardest to do, that's the thing I need to do first. I need to write that recommendation letter first. I need to do that tenure review first, and then the other stuff later. So Eat That Frog is all about procrastination. Now, the last one that I would like to share with you is this book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving A Counterintuitive Approach to Living a Good Life by Mark Manson. Now, lest you think this book is about not caring, it's not. This book is about caring, and about caring deeply. It's just about the fact that we cannot care deeply about everything. It's impossible. And this book talks a lot about how to identify and value what's most important. What's most important in your life. Right. Oh. So let's go back to Simon Sinek and we're going to be done. Here he is.
What is the impact of finding your why? So I can tell you what I went through, which is what set me on the journey to sharing the message of the why and helping people find theirs. A why is like a compass direction. It tells you where you're going. We can live our lives by accident, which is kind of like getting in a ship and just sailing, or getting in a car and just driving. You'll absolutely see some amazing things. You'll stumble upon some amazing experiences, but you don't really have a sense of where you're going, any sort of direction. In other words, what's it all for? What the why does is it provides a path, it provides a map or a compass. So you will still have some of those amazing experiences, but now they have value and worth, and they're taking you towards something else. It's a journey towards something. When I learned my why, I had this tremendous calm come over me, a sense of my confidence grew, a sense that my life had more meaning than I thought it had before, and I had now the choice, a new way of viewing decisions, a filter through which to make decisions, which now I would ask myself, does this help advance my why or not? Does this help me stay on the path that I'm supposed to be on, or is this going to be a random adventure? So the why provides focus, direction, meaning, and confidence.
All right, so, thinking about all of that, everybody, it's obvious to me that even though I just gave this whole lecture on finding the why, all of you, because you're here at SPLICE Institute, you have somehow found at least part of your own why, right? So in a little way, I feel like I've been preaching to the choir for the last hour, right? However, I don't think it's ever
bad to go back and really rethink that why, to like revisit it, because it can help rejuvenate us, to remind us, you know. We can get so lost in the stuff. We get lost in the stuff. Like, I listened to the Gilles Gobet excerpt and I thought, oh yeah, like I got excited all over again. That's how I found my why. That's why I decided to go in the direction that I went, right? We can rededicate ourselves to our why, or we can go deeper down that path. So anyway, I realize that I have met many of you, but some of you I haven't, and I hope I will as the week progresses. We don't have a lot of days left, so please come say hi to me. I'd love to talk to all of you more, and if you want to share your whys with me, I'm always really happy to listen about that. Thank you so much for attending and for your great attention. So it's 5:59. So we're not going to do questions, but if you have any questions, come find me and let's chat. Thanks, everybody.